Last week on the Second Tier podcast, my co-host Justin Peach criticised me for suggesting Sheffield United's Harrison Burrows could go on to play for England.
Eberechi Eze, for example, didn't play in the Championship, get a move to the Premier League side and then go in straight into the England squad. He had time in the Premier League. You need to give these players time to adapt to their level, and Harrison Burrows has got to adapt to the Championship first before adapting to the Premier League before we get carried away.
What's wrong with being a bit ambitious and talking about the potential of these players?
There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just suggesting
it sounds like there's something wrong with it because you pull me up on it all the time. So today I'm listing the top 10 Championship players most likely to play for England. It's not uncommon anymore to see Championship players go on to represent the English national team. In fact, 15 of the latest 23-man England squad played in the EFL at some point in their careers. It's even becoming more common that players are called up to the three-line squad less than 12 months after being in the Championship. The amount of talent in this league just seems to grow, and there's bound to be multiple players in the league right now who will go on to play for the English national team. But who are the most likely? Well, I'm here to guide you through it. I'm Ryan Dilks from the Second Tier, and these are the top 10 Championship players most likely to play for England. Number 10, Tom Fellows of West Bromwich Albion. The winger has been brilliant since making his first start for West Brom back in January. The 21-year-old played a massive part in securing a top 6 place for the Albion, and I expect him to have another big season this year. He's already had a great start, getting 3 assists in his first 4 games. This lad is such an exciting player, and it's no surprise that he was wanted by plenty of Premier League clubs before signing a new contract to stay at the Hawthorns. He will inevitably be a Premier League player at one point though, hopefully with West Brom because he is a local lad. One thing holding him back in regards to this list though is that he is up against the likes of Bukayo Saka, who it's difficult to see not being England's first choice on the right wing for years to come. But Fellows could be a good cover for him and get his chance at some point for the three lines. Number 9, Ollie Arblaster of Sheffield United. Ollie Arblaster was one of the most highly sought after players in the Championship this past summer, and it's easy to see why. Despite only becoming a regular at Sheffield United midway through last season, he was the big bright spark in a completely miserable campaign. Unlike many of his teammates, he didn't look out of place in the Premier League despite only being 20 years old, and that's why the likes of Brentford and Brighton were reportedly very keen to sign him this past summer, but Sheffield United managed to keep hold of him, which is great news for their promotion hopes. It may only be a matter of time before he's back in the Premier League though, with or without his hometown club. If there's one thing holding him back, I would say he's more of a Declan Rice kind of player as opposed to the kind of player who plays alongside Declan Rice. So that would be an issue in the long term for Arblaster in terms of getting into the England team, with Rice looking pretty cemented in England teams for the foreseeable future. But Arblaster may get his chance at some point because he may just be simply too good to miss out. Number 8, Dan Neil of Sunderland. Spoiler alert, Dan Neil won't be the last Sunderland player to feature in this list, but look, England were desperate for someone like Dan Neil at the most recent Euros. Someone like him who can play deep in midfield and play balls forwards. And while it may have been too soon for him, he could get the chance one day. He has been sublime for Sunderland for years now, and he's still just 23, so time is still very much on his side. He was being strongly linked with a move to Liverpool last year, so he's clearly highly regarded as a very bright prospect by those outside of the North East. However, he would love to get to the Premier League with Sunderland, considering he's a Wearside boy born and bred. And that may very well come true in the near future if this start to the season is anything to go by. Whatever the case, like everyone on this list, I expect him to be a Premier League player in the near future. Considering his position, he could be an answer at some point for who plays alongside Declan Rice in midfield. Number 7, Michael Cooper of Sheffield United. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If it wasn't for injuries, Michael Cooper would be playing regularly in the Premier League right now for me. I rate this guy so highly. He was a phenomenal goalkeeper for many years at Plymouth, and it's crazy that Sheffield United got him for just £2 million. He could very easily go for 10 times that or more in a few years' time. This should be the move which gets his career back on track, and I expect him to be a regular Premier League goalkeeper at some point in the near future, whether that's with or without Sheffield United. In fact, any English English keeper playing regularly in the Prem, is rarely too far away from the national team. He's not the last goalkeeper on this list though, which doesn't help his chances in the long term. However, at just 24 years old, there's every chance he's involved in England squads in the future, with time very much on his side. Number 6, Callum Doyle at Norwich City on loan from Manchester City. Callum Doyle's probably not one of the most recognisable names on this list, but he really should be. Despite only being 20 years old, he's already played over 120 games in senior football at centre-back, and would have more if it wasn't for a bad knee injury while at Leicester last season. He's won from the Man City Academy and played 44 games on loan at Sunderland to help them get promoted from League One, despite only being 18. The season after, he played nearly every game for Coventry when they got to the Championship playoff final, and he was a regular at Leicester last season before that injury that I just mentioned happened. And I think that injury may have led to people almost forgetting about him a bit, but now he's on loan at Norwich, where fans have been impressed so far. I mean, you've got to consider this. It's rare for a centre-back to be playing Championship football at such a young age, let alone have as many appearances as him. So as far as his England chances are concerned, he's a left-footed centre-back who can also play at left-back. That's two positions England have been struggling with in recent years. So as long as he keeps developing, he could be a potential starter for England in the future. Number 5, Harrison Burrows of Sheffield United. I recently picked him as my Championship signing of the summer, and this is one of the reasons why, because Harrison Burrows has so much potential. There is a risk of me repeating what I said in that video, so go and watch it if you haven't already, but the long and short of it is this. Here is a 22-year-old coming off the back of an unbelievable season in League One, where he got 6 goals and 15 assists from left back. He was also captain, played all but one game for Peterborough last season, and won League One Player of the Year at left back. For years, he's been one of the best young talents in the EFL and needed to be playing Championship football this season. But I don't think it'll be long before he's playing Premier League football because he's got a lot of factors going his way. For the purpose of this list, he's also massively helped by England's problem with left back at the moment. The next World Cup will probably be Luke Shaw's last international tournament. Ben Chilwell's career has veered off course, and it's genuinely really difficult to say who will be next in line after that. So there's definitely an opening for someone like Harrison Burrows. Number 4, James Trafford of Burnley. I will admit I was umming and ahhing about whether to include James Trafford on this list because I thought he had already played for England, but surprisingly he hasn't. Despite being called up to the England squad in March and even included in the provisional 33-man squad for the Euros, Trafford doesn't have an England cap. But one would suspect that will change sooner rather than later, perhaps even this season, despite him still being a Championship player. It is a surprise that he's still in the second tier with Burnley, considering he was subject to a lot of interest from Premier League sides over the summer, and one would imagine this will be his only season in the Championship for quite some time, and he will be a regular in the top flight from here on in. And if you're an English keeper playing regularly in the Premier League, you won't be too far away from the England squad at some point, as I've already alluded to in this video, particularly when James Trafford knows Lee Carsley well after winning the Under-21s Euros together in 2023. Trafford will be hoping Carsley gets the job full-time to increase his chances of being a regular in future England squads. Number 3, Joe Bellingham of Sunderland. Now, I've got to admit, it would be absolutely class if we saw the Bellinghams in midfield for England at the 2030 World Cup. I would say there's a good chance we see that double act at some point as well. I often feel like Joe Bellingham gets regarded differently as a youngster because of who his brother is, and he's held to a different standard to most teenagers. But we have got to remember, he's only 18 and has already made over 70 appearances at Championship level. Whatever his surname is, that is remarkable. He's a terrifically talented player, and because he's cut from the same cloth as his brother, you can expect him to have a similar mindset when it comes to being fearless on the pitch and working hard to get better off of it. He's been ever present for Sunderland for the last season and a bit, and has never looked out of place, even when he's made his debut at Championship level at the age of 16. But one thing that's really stood out has been his versatility. He's a midfielder, but has been asked to play as a number 10, a number 8, and even recently in holding midfield, which led to his his teammates calling him Joe Busquets. But he's also played up front on multiple occasions for the Black Cats. That versatility and adaptability will stand him in good stead when it comes to his future England prospects. And Real Madrid have been reportedly keeping an eye on Bellingham in the past, so don't be surprised if we not only see the Bellinghams lining up next to each other in midfield for England, but possibly even at the Bernabeu as well. Number 2, James Beadle at Sheffield Wednesday on loan from Brighton. Say it quietly here, but we could be talking about the successor to Jordan Pickford as England's number 1. In fact, during this most recent international break, Beadle's been training with the senior England squad, which shows he's clearly highly rated by those with the national team. He's on loan at Sheffield Wednesday from Brighton and has made a big impression at Hillsborough. He was on loan there last season, and they were desperate to get him back again this season. And he's been playing regularly, despite only turning 20 in July. Now, you often hear of youngsters playing regularly when they're outfielders, but it's a rare thing with goalkeepers. In fact, if Beadle plays 31 times this season, he'll become only the second goalkeeper in Championship history to have made 50 appearances before his 21st birthday. And that gives you an idea of how good this lad is, despite being so young. He is at the forefront of a crop of promising young goalkeepers coming through in England at the moment. Before we get on to our number 1, here are some honourable mentions. Matteo Joseph. The lead striker is without a doubt one of the best young prospects in the Championship. The thing that held me back from including him on this list, though, is he hasn't decided whether he wants to play for England or Spain. He's played for both at youth level, so it's difficult to tell which nation he'll choose, and in terms of who's most likely to play for England in the future, it's difficult to include him when he may not even choose England. Dennis Sirkin. Considering England's left-back problem, perhaps Sirkin should have been included on this list. He has played for England at youth level, and the Sunderland left-back has had an electric start to the season. Ben Sheaf. I got a lot of stick last season for suggesting Ben Sheaf should be called up to the Euro squad because he was the kind of player that England needed. If he was in the Premier League, I don't think he would have been far away. Unfortunately, he's now 26, so time is running out, but he's still worthy of a mention in this list. And our number 1 pick for the Championship player most likely to go on to play for England is Chris Rigg of Sunderland. This was a fairly easy number 1 because Chris Rigg is one of the brightest talents we've ever seen at Championship level. Over the years, we've seen the likes of Jude Bellingham, Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey have a massive impact at such a young age. More recently, we've seen Archie Gray do it. For me, Chris Rigg is in that same bracket. He captained the England under-17 side while still only 15. He made 21 appearances last season for Sunderland, despite only turning 17 this past summer. And he's already made a big impact for the Black Cats this season. He's also on course to break the Championship record for the youngest player to reach 50 appearances. I can't recall too many occasions where I've seen a player as young as him play with such flair and creativity. He's so intelligent already at this age and has all the attributes to become a top player. If reports are to be believed, the likes of Real Madrid and Borussia Dortmund are keeping an eye on him, and Sunderland are probably well aware they're going to struggle to keep a hold of him. As long as Chris Rigg avoids injury and any off-the-field factors, he should be one of the best to ever come out of this division. And it may end up being a case of not will he play for England, it may end up being more of a case of where does he fit into the England team. So what do you think? Is there anyone I've missed out? Is there anyone who you think should be higher on this list? Let me know in the comments section below. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe for more content like this. I've been Ryan Dilks from the Second Tier, and we'll be back again very soon.